Hi, it's Liz. I'm really not feeling well today. And my daughter's sleeping, so I'm trying to be quiet. So you might want to turn up the volume. I want to talk today about. I don't even. I guess I'll figure out how to phrase this in the title, but I want to talk about bullying, and ableism around people who are displaying psychotic symptoms. Crazy people, if you will. I have another video, which I'll link to in one way or another, about how I don't think the term crazy is a slur. Which I know that other people disagree with me about. But the flip side of that is that I do think is very serious when we turn psychosis and mental illness generally into a joke. And it typically is the butt of a joke. And I've found this to be the case on the left just as much as on the right, which is disappointing. I mean, the way that the right is today in the US, and I'm saying that specifically because it hasn't always been that way. The right actually used to be conservative, and it used to be respectable, and it used to be polite. And if you look at the history of conservatism as a concept politically, there's actually a lot there that I agree with, but the modern conservative movement is pretty just vile and disgusting, and I don't expect better from them than to just bully people constantly, because that's what they do. They look for any perceived difference, anything that can be perceived as a weakness, and they attack it and make fun of it and dehumanize people and degrade people. But I do expect better from the left, because there is, at least in theory, these ideas around oppression, these ideas around dominance structures, and there is, the concept of ableism that people on the left talk about. And but nonetheless, I think ableism is one of the concepts, one of the structures that is the least taken seriously or understood among leftists, from what I've seen. And I've noticed, about a year ago, I went to this event that was, all in all, a great event. I was really, really impressed. It was organized in part by some of my good old friends who do really great work. I was really proud of them. But I was saddened to take away a lot of specific instances and experiences of people very specifically turning psychosis into a joke. And I'm talking about people who were giving workshops and stuff, like people who I would hold to a higher standard and expect to know better. They couldn't talk about somebody who was mentally ill and having delusions and saying, out there things. I understand why that can be funny, but to turn that person, even a hypothetical person, just into a joke and into sort of subhuman, is unacceptable, especially since, that whole event was geared towards specifically low-income queer and trans people who have a disproportionate rate of mental health issues, because being poor and being marginalized puts more stress on your brain, and it exacerbates and triggers more mental illness. And it also comes with a lot more trauma, too. Those populations are a lot more likely to experience all kinds of childhood abuse, sexual abuse, etc. So, it's potentially really hurtful. I mean, I was kind of hurt being there, but it could have been a lot more hurtful to somebody who was in a more vulnerable place than me and who had gone through psychosis and stuff, to realize that even in this place where they're supposed to be safe and supposed to have allies and support, that they're still the butt of a joke, that they're still seen as less than human, that they're still not going to be taken seriously or supported when they need it most. You know, that's the takeaway that we get. You know, people who suffer from these kinds of chronic mental health issues, when people laugh at us, or when people laugh at the idea of anybody being like that, you know, that sends us a very clear message that at the end of the day, you know, we can't really trust you. That when we need you the most, you're going to be flippant and dismissive and attack us and blame us. And this is where it gets to, the reason I'm bringing this up is because of David Hogg's recent tweets. Now, it's very off topic for my channel to get into the whole conversation of what I personally think about the gun debate and about the stuff that came out of that mass shooting and all those kids and the statements they've made. I mean, needless to say, I'm not into attacking them. They're traumatized kids. I don't agree with everything they say either. From the beginning, I haven't agreed with everything they said. I don't think they have perfect analysis, but anyway, he put out a tweet recently. I have to plug in my stupid computer. He put out a tweet recently that was very unhinged. That was like talking about how the gun movement was started a century, the anti-gun violence movement started like a century ago by non-binary people of color or whatever. Like, obviously this isn't, that we don't know who they are, you know, and thank you, I don't know, I'll link to the tweet, I guess, and so you can see the comments, because, well, obviously that what he said, it doesn't make sense. To me, it's very clear that, I mean, unless he was just woefully misinformed at some point, that he is suffering from a psychotic sounding delusion. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. That sounds like something I would have said in one of my psychotic episodes, for sure. You know, you convince yourself of really weird stuff that makes sense in the context of, you know, your own mind. And I do understand the impulse to say, oh, ha ha ha, that's so stupid, you're stupid, but, like, this kid has gone through a serious trauma that most of us can't imagine. He was thrust into the limelight from that moment forward, and now it looks like he's having a mental health episode. And people's response, and not just the right, but on the left, is to viciously make fun of him. And it just makes my stomach turn. I mean, and this is not even, I mean, that's not an isolated thing, you know. Every celebrity, there's so many celebrities who have had public mental health breakdowns, and every time they're just the butt of a joke. Every time. Britney Spears, Kanye West. I mean, and of course the left love to come after Kanye West because he's said and done a lot of things that were, to be polite, questionable. I'm not saying that people shouldn't criticize the things that he says, but it escalates from there to attacking him. And this is where it gets into this whole thing that I really got to make that podcast with my friend, that whole thing about culpability and mental illness and stuff, because there's a fine line to be walked there, you know. Again, I'm not saying he shouldn't be, the things that he says and the things that he's done shouldn't be criticized just because he has a mental health issue. But it's been clear to me from day one that the guy has chronic mania, that he's probably bipolar. Like, I know it's supposed to be wrong to diagnose people from afar or whatever, but like, it takes one to know one. I know what mania looks like, you know, like I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, and I'm pretty sure he was years after I'd clocked that, diagnosed bipolar. But that's not the point. I wish people could give that criticism with some kind of empathy, because when you're manic or psychotic, you don't have the same kind of impulse control and reasoning ability. You know, like, God forbid that you one day should experience that and find out the things that come out of your mouth, because they're not going to be things that you're going to want to stand behind later, right? They're not going to be things that you're proud of. Like, biases and prejudices and paranoias and demons that you don't even know you have are going to come out in that context. So I guess I just wish that recognizing that somebody said something wrong, you know, in terms of accuracy or morality, or somebody did something wrong, that you can recognize those things while also offering a healthy dose of compassion. And that goes for everybody, really. But I think it's most obvious when somebody's mentally ill, that I would think it would be obvious that you'd want to offer some compassion there, not hold them to the same standard, you know, that you would hold somebody who's more fully capable of reasoning and controlling what they say and how they say it, and in what context, you know. It just makes things so needlessly difficult and hostile for people who are mentally ill. It's a difficult situation for everyone involved when there's somebody who's going through a mental health crisis. Anyway, but you know, compassion and empathy, along with critical thinking, can all work together to make it a little less hard. It's so hard because there's this dichotomy, I feel like, in our culture, where you either deny that somebody has a problem, or you deny that somebody's wrong, or you deny that there's an illness, kind of a thing. Or you basically hate and dehumanize that person. You just trash them. There can't be, you know, like, people have a hard time with this idea that you can see that somebody's wrong, or that somebody has a problem. A psychological problem, even a moral problem. and still love them, and still, even if you don't take everything they say seriously, still take them seriously as a human being who still deserves human dignity. And with that, I hope you're still taking me seriously. Then I have all this snot coming out of my nose. I'm gonna blow my nose. You'll hear more from me about this general topic later, but I just want to say I'm real disappointed. So, do better.